What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. We've flown across the pond for another episode of 1320 Garages. We're here at this nondescript garage, but for a familiar face that you guys will recognize. Let's go check it out.
Hello, welcome. Hi guys, I'm Shmee. How you doing?
What's up? Good to see you.
Welcome to my small white little room. No, I'm joking. Come on in, come on in. Let's go explore.
There's gotta be more.
Welcome to the Shmuseum. We are currently a bit of a construction site, but this is the garage.
Wow, holy cow. Look at all the colors.
Safe to say I like my colors. I like my motorsport track themed cars. So we've themed this whole garage on the idea of the racetrack that comes through. This is the grandstand we'll go and explore.
Nice.
But I love driving at the Nürburgring. From here, you can get there in about 7 hours. You have to drive across a few countries to do so, but it's not so hard over here in Europe. And pretty much all of these cars have been to the Nordschleife for the Green Hell. And obviously now all parked up. We've literally just finished the floor, which is fabulous. We've just been installing some glass. A funny bit of backstory, this was literally a milking parlor. So this was literally, this was filled with cows on this farm. We're not too far from London. It's very, very, very kind of, you'd never expect from outside. But that's what I like. I like that kind of cross, that kind of irony almost of it. But I had this idea. It was just that it took so long when I moved in to do the concrete, to convert everything, to get the lighting, all the security stuff, all of that. Yeah. And then it was like, right, let's have a pause. Let's now get on with things in the last couple of months. And we've gone hitting the ground running.
It looks amazing. How big is the garage?
So we're about 7,500 square feet.
Dang.
So it's a decent amount of space.
Yeah.
I have around 20 or so cars. There are a couple of cars here at the moment that don't belong to me, friends' cars being stored, and one of mine that's absent. I tried my hardest to see if we can get it back for today, but obviously we'll get to that. We'll get
in the collection in just a second. Show me around the rest of the garage and what the layout's like. I like the lifts here. Yeah,
so the lifts are the Benpack auto stackers. I liked the idea of separating it into the storage side and the museum side. Gotcha. So this is not necessarily in terms of use, because I try and drive the cars all the time. Everything goes out. But in terms of appearance, you know, you have that run of 7 auto stackers. These are fabulous lifts, by the way. Up and down super easily. Obviously a splash of color going on like crazy. And then on the opposite side is the idea to build. We're going to have a proper construction behind where we have the temporary gazebos at the moment, but more
so there'll be rooms built over there.
Yeah, but more of my memorabilia on display, things hanging on the walls, that kind of stuff, and obviously more of the towards flagship cars, if you will, as well. Obviously arcade machines, there are gas pumps everywhere, all sorts of lights and things, and all of that you can look out to from literally what we're calling the grandstand. So the idea is to feel like you're at Silverstone or at the Nürburgring or something.
Oh yeah.
You know, you've got the hospitality boxes with all the glass windows. You've got the metal railings just to give that industrial feel, that vibe from it. Meet Shmee the cow, the mascot for the channel.
The new mascot.
Yeah. So this is obviously the lounge downstairs, and it's all hooked up to, you know, the crazy smart home stuff. So picture that this is all going to have glass. You know, this is going to be.
Oh, okay.
If you come next time, you'll be here. The glass will all look a little like that. So it'll all be kind of frosted up. And then, Alexa, turn on glass.
Okay.
Oh,
it's
damn.
So cool. It's so cool. And my F1 show car. So the whole room will just open up. We can change all sorts of tech stuff. It's literally been installed today. So, like.
Are you going to do that with these windows here or just those?
Yeah, no, the whole windows.
Really?
So there'll be a double door here.
So people walk in and the thing is just a little lounge. Yeah. And then you turn on the windows and they see all of this.
Yeah. It's going to be so cool.
I love it.
I feel like a little kid at Christmas with this, because I've been lucky to spend, you know, so much time around cars and drive so many cool things. And the cars are one thing, but I always dreamt of having my own place. You know, for me, this is where I film my videos. This is where I keep my cars. This is where I sit at a desk to do my work, and that's going to be upstairs. Yeah. So to be able to pull it all together in this, I mean, it's literally a toy room in some ways. Like I've got a stock car track over there. I've got arcade machines. I've got all the stuff.
Speaking of toys, before you go upstairs, I want to look at the toys over here.
Yeah, the model cars. This was something I started a long time ago, getting 1:18 scale model cars painted to match the ones that I owned. So like my first car was a little Renault Clio, which I have a replica of actually over there, but all with the right plates. There are some that still need painting, but you know, things like my Ford GT painted to match, even 3D printed the wheels to match. Oh wow. I've been quite obsessive with this. So V8 Vantage, they never made a 1:18 scale Roadster. So somebody 3D printed the rear deck lid parts of the model car to make it match the one that's over there. Like, I went over.
That's next level.
But I love those kind of details. It's like, I just feel that this was the opportunity, or this was always the idea that I wanted to be able to create and to be able to show all of this stuff. So I've been planning it for years and years behind the scenes, and similar story with like Lego and other things and all sorts of stuff. I'm sorry, we've got like random TV
That's
and
all right.
whatever. It's
a construction zone.
yeah, and like tracks you have to watch out for, because there will be glass there, I promise. Should we head upstairs?
Yes,
Go have a look here. But again, you know, this is what you'd find at a motorsport venue, right?
Yep.
This kind of metal feel. So that's what I wanted to go for. And then
view.
yeah, I mean, firstly, the view. The racetrack is actually super Nürburgring inspired as well, red and white curbing. But also, the way it comes from the entrance, I've got this gentle left before a right, then you have a straight, and then another little right kink at the end. And the idea is to have a mural on a flat wall up at the end that goes off to the right, which is the layout of the track at Brunchen, which is the famous YouTube corner. If you've ever seen anything of stuff going wrong on the Nürburgring, it's that corner. So I thought it was quite fun
That's great.
to bring that into
Don't jinx
here.
yourself.
No, well, I've done a couple of hundred laps and it's not gone wrong yet. Let's touch some wood.
Yeah,
make
no
sure
kidding.
We're good.
No
But
kidding.
literally, I mean, this room behind us is going to be my office behind the glass up here. And I'm like,
wow.
This is what I've...
Let's check out the view here real quick.
Yeah.
Where are you going to sit?
Just about where you are now.
All right, cool. All right. Yeah, I'd say that's...
I'm like, that's going to be the view from my desk.
Yeah.
Like, I can't get my head around this myself. It's a complete dream. But we've done things like here, kept these cutaways for glass inserts as well, to give that feeling of one single pane across the front. And then down at the end will be a room to store some collectibles and display stuff like that. There'll be another office room back behind us. And then when that's done, there'll be some more rooms and like office space down there as well. So it's come together quite nicely so far.
What a view. Look at that collection. One thing about the garage we haven't asked about, this is where we get this from FTV Cribs. Where's the fridge at? Do you have a fridge?
Back downstairs.
Okay.
The fridge. This might be a bit cliche YouTuber. I got to apologise in advance. But come in. But our fridge here, pop this open.
Yes, very cliche.
Every YouTuber has to have a fridge full of prime, right? I'm sorry.
It's even over here. We can't get away from it.
Oh, everywhere. But this is just a little space, right? Because it's not full on kitchen. We're not trying to put in tables and seating areas. It's not that kind of garage.
All right, let's go through the cars. How many cars total do you own right now?
In the region of 20, up and down, cars bought, sold. I guess we've got about 20 cars in here at the moment.
And there's 3 that you don't own, right?
Yes.
We can get to those as we go around.
We'll get to those. Yeah. Maybe we should even start right here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We actually
F1
call
car.
this the Halo Bay. It's a bit like a pit box at an F1 track, right? And it just happens to have an F1 show car. This is a really cool story. I didn't know what I was getting when I chose to add this to my collection. And then we found out it's actually show car chassis number 1 of the 1997 Williams FW19, which was the last Williams car to win the Formula 1 World Championship.
This car itself?
No, this is a show car. So this doesn't have an engine.
It's a replica to take around.
But it's the one that they use to show at different racing events that year, and it's been through a few sponsors in the years that followed. So I had it restored, repainted in the original livery. It's a really cool
And they just happened to win that year too.
Yeah, the last year the team won. So that's one of those it's hard to explain. They've become super valuable. Like you could buy quite a nice car for this, but it's a really cool thing to have here and just to have in the garage, like ultimate memorabilia. Onto the actual cars of the garage. Should we start here? You don't get these in the US.
We don't.
This is a Skoda Octavia VRS diesel sleeper wagon, you could say. Bit of a team car. It's a long-term loan from Skoda. We have it for 6 months or so. We do tons of miles in it just to get to places. There's nothing like a fast wagon. Fast wagons are just cool. Always cool. I mean, it's a very nice one.
You've had an RS6 I saw on your shelf.
Had an RS6, had a whole bunch of that kind of thing. We love our hot hatches and we love our fast estates here in Europe. 675 LT Spider is up above. That's the car I've owned the longest.
The purple is beautiful.
Yeah, that was a custom color, custom paint color. I've had that car for 7 years now, 20,000 or just shy of 20,000 miles. It was a big part of starting my channel. I had a series of McLarens, 12C, 650S.
I think that's right around when I started following you is when you got that car.
LT Coupe, and then that in summer 2016. I absolutely love it. Took it to Silverstone a couple of weeks ago. Amazing. It's driven the Ring, it's driven Spa, it's driven loads of tracks. It's what they're for. Fast wagons. About the fastest of wagons, the Ferrari GTC 4 Lasso. I had an FF, then I bought a Lasso, I sold that Lusso for a Taycan, and then I quickly realized that going from a V12 to EV was a bad idea, so I went back to a V12 and got another Lusso.
Yeah, you would miss the sound and the smell.
Yeah,
and,
it's the only 12-cylinder engine car I own at the moment. I've got a Puro Sangue coming soon, so having had like a series of the 4-seat Ferraris, that's the next edition.
By the way, I forgot to mention, we're going to get to your top 3. Don't mention them as we're going through.
Okay.
People have to hang out for that.
Yep, okay. I'll do my best. C63 Black Series, I've got 3 Black Series cars. I like them because they're all quite different. This is like super shouty, boisterous. It's quite limited, but it's a C-Class. It's a C-Class on steroids. You know, it's just noisy. X-pipe, crazy exhaust system, sounds silly.
Does it come with all the aero up front here? Did you add that?
No, that's factory.
That's factory,
That's
okay.
factory aero kit. There aren't many with the aero kit. That was a big option. Like, I guess it was $25,000 just as the option on the car when it was new. SLS Black Series, big daddy of the Black Series collection. Only 350 in the world. I bought this car, I resprayed it. It was originally silver.
Oh.
I really wanted one to feel like it was mine from new. I always like creating a story with a car. So speccing it in a unique way, bright colors. I had seen one in this color. They made one factory car in this color. So I was like, I want to paint it the same.
Oh, so this is a factory color.
It's a factory color, but it wasn't painted by the factory.
Now there's 2, just not
Well, the
original.
funny story is someone else has gone and painted theirs in the same color, so there are now 3. He saw this one and he was like, I'm doing the same. I love it. I've driven this car probably 20 plus Nürburgring laps, 200 miles an hour plus on the Autobahn. I mean, pretty much all of my cars have done a VMAX run and an Autobahn, and a Nürburgring lap. Mm-hmm. But that thing's a beast. Like, I always one of my dream cars. Back when it came out in 2013, I never thought that I could one day own one of those. So for me, it's one of those like, how is that mine? You know, like, how is that thing?
It's an amazing car.
Like, I was trying to finance myself however I could into the regular SLS back at the time, but they were too far out of reach. I couldn't do it. And yeah, now that one's sitting there, so it's pretty mega. Completely different car underneath it is the Lotus Emira.
I've never seen one of these in person.
It's such a cool car. This is £80,000, which is like $100K.
Yeah.
It's such a cool car for that money. It punches well above its weight. It's a manual supercharged V6. It's supercar looks, but in a car that you can enjoy on the road. You know, it's 400 odd horsepower. It's enough that you can string it out a bit. I kind of daily drive it, to be honest.
I like the hood from the front view. Like
Yeah.
it has a Ferrari look to it.
Yes.
Like
when
a
I parked
shrunken
this
488.
next to the SF90, it's actually quite amazing to see them side by side.
What year is that?
So this is brand new. I got it in December.
Oh, it is. That's
yeah,
okay.
So they only came out last year. We then get to a bit of America.
Ah, yeah.
Well, let's start with the Focus RS. So because the UK is such a hot market for the Focus RS, Ford, as a tribute, made the last 50 Mark IIIs, which are the last RSs, in orange. This is a tribute to the original 1968 Escort Mark I. So they came out in 2018, right, 50 years later. There were only 50 of them. The top 50 dealers here each got one. And my dealer had pre-said, if you ever get one, can I get one? Can I get it, please? And they kind of stayed to their word and let me buy it. And you know, most of these are sitting in collections because they're worth twice what they cost only a few years ago. I've done, I think it's about 8,500 miles. Drive it quite often if I need to do a
the way cars
daily.
should be used.
Yeah, that's what I always think, which is exactly what this beast did. I bought it in the US, GT500 carbon fiber track pack, big wing, carbon wheels, completely stupid car.
Yeah.
Like, that much power in that thing and stick carbon wheels on it to save some weight doesn't make any sense at all. But I've done about 13,000 miles, bought it in Miami, drove it cross country, did another trip from New York up to Toronto, all the way back down to Miami again. It's been around.
It's only appropriate that you drive it in the States.
Yeah. And
is this right-hand drive?
No, so it's left-hand drive
because you bought it in the States.
You can't buy Shelby Mustangs in Europe, not new at least, because they don't meet our regulations and homologation stuff.
So of course.
You have to import it yourself. The only downside of importing it yourself is it costs whatever it costs out there, MSRP plus market adjustment, and then you have to pay 32% tax to bring it in.
Oh,
that wasn't much fun. But
no.
I knew that from day one. So,
and you can't fudge the numbers on that either.
Yeah, so that was a hefty whack to bring that over. But it's cool, you know, that's a rarer car here than pretty much anything in this garage.
Yeah.
Because how many people have imported them, right? It's probably 10, I don't know, it's a tiny number. So that's quite fun. The funny thing you'll notice as well is on all of the cars, I have a plate that means something to do with the car, and also at the bottom a quote from somebody connected as well.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
So like 67 on there is because of the first GT500 in 1967, a quote from Carroll Shelby at the bottom, and the same like that all the way through on every car. It connects to the car in some way. So like 62 on the SLS, it's got a 6.2 V8, 13 on the Emira, it's Type 131, so 13 was the code number for the car.
Let me read this real quick.
Yeah.
There is never enough horsepower, just not enough traction. Carol Shelby, I like that.
Yeah, so I always try and find, like, I've got a Henry Ford quote on the Heritage RS, and some fun stuff. The V8 Vantage Roadster up top, the first video I ever made on my YouTube channel, so kind of where all of this began, when I was talking to camera. It wasn't the first video I'd uploaded, but the first time I'd ever presented a video was driving that, well, 11, 12 years ago now, and I sold it. Obviously at the time to buy another car, I traded it for an R8, but always had a soft spot for it. So when it came back up for sale, kind of nearly 2 years ago, I had to buy it. Didn't matter what the price was or what the story was.
That's amazing that you're able to get it back.
Yeah. The GT8 was the final version of the original, of this generation V8 Vantage. They only made 150. It wasn't available stateside. Manual gearbox, NA engine, 4.7 V8, carbon body, silly thing, stupid big splitters and wings and stuff, but that's what it's about. It's emotion. It's all about the fun of it.
Amen.
Other cars that you guys don't really get. Clio. This is identical to my first car. So my first car was one of these, a 75 horsepower, 1.2 litre, 3-door Renault Clio. Not something to be particularly proud of, but I loved it. Those first adventures, those first road trips, first memories, first everything.
Is that why you bought that? Is because
I bought it just as a kind of reminder where it all began, really. That's even the plate I had on mine back at the time. That was just my original plate. S17 was September 17th, my birthday, and then my initials. Like that was just where it kind of began. And I actually managed to track down my original. Unfortunately, the one I actually owned before got involved in an accident. It was written off by insurance. It became a lump of metal. But we managed to find recently, so I had sold it 15 years before, we managed to find the scrapyard once we found this out, and we managed to buy back the metal. So I own this lump of metal. I don't know what to do with it, but I own this lump of metal that was my first car. I had it for 4 years back then. It was, it was my only car from 17 to 21.
Yeah.
Like, all of those memories. And I mean, it kind of moves us on to this a bit, because this was the flagship of the thing above. People don't know what this is, but there's a V6 in the back of a hatchback.
in the back?
In the back.
From the factory?
From the factory. They made a little over 1,300 or so of them. It's 255 horsepower. It's not crazy. We've done a whole load of mods to this. The lightweight flywheel, suspension, brakes, etc., to make it a bit of an OEM plus upgrade, if you will. But it's something that nobody expects. I love it. I bought it. This car was in a complete disastrous state. It hadn't been started for I think 8 years. There was a mouse living in the boot of it, in the trunk. So it was like, you'd think it was kind of worthless.
What year is it?
2004.
Okay.
2004, and
it's really good shape for 2004. Been repainted?
It's been fully resprayed.
I figured.
Yeah, no, it was a black car. This is an original Renault colour. There are only 7 in the UK in this colour surviving, so it's kind of a rare choice, but people know it from the car. But I even put a Mr. Clarkson quote on here, because when it was on Top Gear back in the days, you start with a practical, sensible family hatchback, then fill it full of engine, which is what he said.
Very appropriate.
It's pretty accurate for this thing.
Yes.
And the last car here belongs to my friends who own a wrap shop called Dub Customs, a TBR T350. Nice looking thing. We've never taken it out or anything. It just kind of lives here safely. We come over here. We've got the electric go-kart.
Yes, that's cool.
All the toys and things just dotted.
Is that a 9-bot or whatever?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. We just wrapped it in the kind of colours of the garage. The blue has always been my thing. This is a Jag XJ220S. So not your standard car. They only made 9 S's. There were 6 originals, 3 upgraded cars kind of back in the 90s. This belongs to my friend Max Cooper, the founder of Gumball 3000. So this is his. It's been stored here for a while. But
amazing to see one.
I don't mind looking at it. It's a very
so
cool
wide.
thing. The thing it's by far the biggest car here.
Yeah.
It weighs, well, in kilos, it's 1,080 kilos, which is what, 3,000? I don't know off the top of my head. It's not a lot.
Yeah.
It's the lightest car here.
Especially for how big it is.
Yes, and yet it still has 700 horsepower.
Oh yeah.
Death trap.
That
for
would
sure.
be fun.
Absolute death trap. You'll notice most of the cars that I own, I bought from new. If I didn't buy them from new, like the Clio or the SLS, I've tended to make them into my own.
Nice.
Like painting them or doing some upgrades to them. Hurricane STO, my first Lambo actually. And before anybody says they hate the colours of this thing, that was the goal. It was like, if you're going to do a Lambo that stands out in a sea of Lambos, you've got to do something stupid, right? And I'm more I like my colours, but I also quite like elegant specs, you know, a navy blue with silver wheels, like the SLS, like the SF90 will get to.
And a pink purple.
So a very glittery, metallic magenta with white accents and white wheels, inspired by my friend, the Stradman, James.
Looks like a Stradman color.
Yeah.
Especially with white wheels on it.
I was like, you only live once, why not? And it's hilarious. You drive this thing anywhere and people just go crazy.
It's beautiful. I love these cars, especially with the roof scoop.
Yeah. There are things about it I'm not the biggest fan of. Things like the roof scoop is a difficult one for me because it's not like an intake, it's just to the engine bay. It's one of those like,
cooling,
and it's the same engine that the Performante had. And it was cool enough in the Performante, so why does it need more in the STO?
But that's what makes it an STO to me.
It's a
It's like
Lamborghini.
you know it instantly with that up there.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And it just looks crazy, but it's still quite easy to drive. It's very daliable. It's very comfortable.
Can you spec it without that?
No,
the scoop?
no, but
Okay.
I guess you could just put a thing over it if you wanted to. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. It's a Lamborghini.
No.
It's supposed to look stupid. This is definitely one of my prized possessions at the moment, the GT Black Series, because I took it when I took delivery of it. I actually resprayed this as well. It wasn't originally yellow, even though it's a new car. In the UK, we could only order them, a rule that MB UK set, in their original factory colours. So I think you had 9 choices or something. And I was adamant to have it in this colour, AMG Solar Beam. It's one of my favourite colours. I think it looks absolutely stunning. And every render I had done of this car myself, just changing the colour, I was like, that looks so good. It has to be. It has to be that. Unfortunately, they kind of wouldn't allow any exceptions to the rule for the UK cars, the right-hand drive cars. So I took delivery and in the first week repainted it, literally. Less than a week old.
All the car collectors are having heart attacks.
Yes, but
Whatever.
that was the start because then
You knew you're going to drive it anyway.
I drove it through Europe, you know, the usual Nürburgrings, top speed runs, etc. Tuned it with a company called Opus in Germany, so it's 850 horsepower, minor stuff, you know, high flow sports cats and engine tune. But then took it out to the Middle East. So it's been to Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Oh, cool.
Drove this car at Yas Marina, the Abu Dhabi F1 circuit.
Looks very fitting out there, I'm sure.
Brought it back here. Oh, the photos in the desert out there.
Oh, yeah.
Unreal. Brought it back here for Goodwood Festival of Speed last summer, and then straight after that sent it out to the US. So I've driven this car on 3 continents.
That's amazing.
And that's just the start. There's more to come. So it's got about 20,600 miles on the clock. I don't think there is another customer in the world who has as many miles. So it's funny. When people say, don't you worry about the value when you've repainted it, I'm like, I'm not sure a 21,000 mile GT Black Series.
It's not going to be worth much anyway.
That value isn't really the goal. I'll keep it. I was actually really privileged to be invited by AMG to be in the original launch trailer for the GT Black Series when they presented it to the world. So I was in the first media content that they ever shared of the car. So, you know, that wasn't like a paid gig or anything. It was just a kind of, do you want to be part of it? And I'm like, of course I do. Like, I had a GTR Pro, GTR Roadster before, and I had an SLS Black Series. So GT Black Series for me is like, yes, please, I want to be part of that. So when that call came in, I was like, yeah,
that's great.
Let's do it. So it's a very personal car to me.
This is one of my favorites in the garage for sure.
Yeah, the Ford GT. I mean, it needs very little introduction, right? Again, I've taken this around the world. This has been to the US. I mean, it started life in Canada and the US, came to Europe. I took it back to the US for a tour around the country. You can't drive something like this all the time. I have about 8,000 miles on this. But it's a really personal and special car because it was the first new GT to leave the factory with a bespoke stripe, with a custom color stripe, which was done as a tribute to Alan Mann Racing, who back in the 60s used to run GT40s here in the UK. So they're a British race team.
Oh, that's cool.
So they ran red and gold as their colour scheme.
Tying the US and UK together.
So I reached out, sadly Alan Mann passed away, but I reached out to his sons, Henry and Tom Mann, and they kindly sent me a pot of paint of the original gold that they used.
What?
So I sent that to Ford, and that's why Ford kind of broke from the norm and automatic and painted the car in a custom colour. And we did a few other kind of unique upgrades as well. So although the interior is black Alcantara, it has a red and gold stitch. So it's one of the, if not the only GT in the world to have a custom colour stitch from OEM, which is quite cool as well. It's these small details when it comes to these things.
It's cool they're willing to do that.
Yeah, it's a very special car.
They literally took paint you gave them and put the stripes on the car?
Yeah, literally a pot of paint. Yeah. I mean, they mixed up their own to make the same colour,
but you had the paint to get the color code off of it, basically.
Which was awesome. Really cool. We've just fitted a new exhaust to it as well, so it sounds mega. It sounds as it should, because in Europe we have OPFs, and some cars in the US come with the OPF, but most don't. These are pretty quiet over here. These are
What's OPF stand for?
Oh gosh, I don't even know.
Okay.
Something particulate filter.
Gotcha. Something for emissions.
Yes, basically, it's an extra cat. Look at it like that.
Oh, okay.
SF90, I drive this a lot. 1,000 horsepower, silly thing, but yet it's quite comfortable. A lot of people think like a 1,000 horsepower car, it must be a track machine. But the thing here, the clue is in the name. It's actually called the SF90 Stradale. Stradale is Italian for road. It's quite soft, it's quite cushy, which makes it a really nice car to drive. And I shouldn't have just kicked what I've just kicked. We'll get to that in a second. And you know, you've got about 15 miles electric range. I actually drive it to and from my home to here in electric. Works really well. Love it. It's a really nice car. I put a roof box. I put a ski box on the top. So I had a ski box for a big trip I did down to the mountains. Yeah, pretty cool thing. We should get to this. And the reason I have a 1-18 model here is because the real car is actually at the factory, my Zenvo TSRS. The most crazy decision I've ever made in my life to buy this thing, because it was obviously fabulously expensive, but 1,360 horsepower if you're running it on E85.
Wow.
Hand built, very limited numbers. Mine is the 4th TSRS that they've made in Denmark. And the experience is just unlike any other. The supercar experience is cool. Like the level of relationship with the brand, the experience of speccing the car and taking delivery. This is like no other. Like, for example, to the extent that I say to the factory, it would be lovely if we have an additional storage area in the cabin, and they go and custom make a carbon fiber and netted portion to sit behind the seats that can go there to hold some drinks and stuff. And the same for the license plate. They've never done a UK one. And you can't, some people here will run a car without a front plate, but I like to do it correctly, so I do put plates. Legally, you have to. So this is the normal grille on the front. They actually made a new grille, which is full carbon, of course. It's a carbon cutout mesh for my car to house a UK plate with the right
Oh, no
brackets in
way.
place.
At
It's
the
a
factory, they custom made it for
And
you.
obviously it's custom colours and custom carbon and all sorts of crazy things. So I've had a lot of fun with the car. It's off at the factory at the moment, actually getting some upgrades because they're constantly developing these things. They've come up with a few new engine components, so they literally say, can we upgrade your car? I'm like, of course you can. So they send a trailer, goes back to the factory, they do it up nicely, and it'll be back here very, very soon.
Where do they make these at?
In Denmark, just south of
not too far
Copenhagen.
away.
Depends.
Yeah.
It's a long old drive.
Yeah,
It's
not like it's in the States at least.
Yeah, from here it's a good, you'd be on the road for about 20 hours to get from here to there.
Sure.
This is actually a friend's car, ready for this year's Gumball in Europe. It's from Canada. This is actually, it's quite a fun story. On the Toronto to Miami Gumball 3000 last year, I drove in my GT500 across the finish line in Miami with this car. Then at the end of last year, I drove in convoy with this car in Dubai. And now this car is here in my garage in England. I'm like, this is crazy. This is like the whole world.
Yeah,
like, it's funny to
you're
think,
living it, that's for sure.
yeah, that these cars have gone around the world a lot. And then the last car in here,
Pinky.
yeah, it's a little bit bright, isn't it?
Yes.
This is an MSRT Transit Custom. We like our vans here. Like a transit van like this is the equivalent of an F-150 in America. There are loads of them. Any tradesman will have one of these. But we went a little bit out there with the colours.
I'd say so, yeah.
Excuse me. It's a bit of a like support car for the STO, pink and white. That was the kind of idea behind it.
Yep.
But obviously great for lugging around tires, wheels, just stuff. 6 seats, whatever we need, and a fun story as well. Just because it's crazy and it's out there. So yeah, that's pretty
Awesome.
much it for the cars
What
that are here
a
at the moment.
collection. So we've seen your full collection.
Yeah.
Take me to number 3. I don't want to hear number 2 or number 1 right now. Take me to number 3.
Take you to number 3. Do you know what? I'm going to start then with the Ferrari.
Ooh,
Because-
all right.
Because I genuinely drive this a lot. For me, my dailies are actually either the Emira or the SF90. And it makes no sense to daily drive a 1,000 horsepower car.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's stupid, right? It's like, but it works. It works so nicely. It's such a lovely thing. And it's so ballistically fast.
All right, well, we got to go experience it. So
Yeah.
I'm going to grab some cameras. We're going to hop in here, take it out, and hear a little more about this car.
Let's do it.
Here we go.
Let's do this. I have the comfy spec, we can call it.
There we go. It's like getting in a roll cage. I mean, a door ding the other car.
Yeah, these doors need some big space to climb in. But no, the car you can opt to have what they call the Assetto Fiorano, or you can have it like this, just the regular spec. And I've got the comfort seats, which is, you know, some people would say it should have all the hardcore spec settings. But turn it on.
Whoa, the car's started.
Yeah, Apart from the fact I somehow got the front boot open, so I'm going to have to jump
So
out and go
your
close
start is here.
it. Yeah, literally. And then
Whoa.
electric, right?
Weird.
It's pinging at me because we need to go and do the front boot before we drive
Yep.
off.
All right, before we take this thing out, we got to check out the fob. Oh, yeah, that's probably
It's very
definitely the nicest key fob.
fancy. This is the spare one. The
We've
main
ever-
one has a yellow key
Oh.
to match the Ferrari logo, and it goes here. Look at that.
Oh, dang, it's got its own little
Very,
placeholder
very,
there.
very swish, isn't it? And do you know what? Because they know Ferrari owners have lots of Ferraris, it tells you the name of the car on the bottom. So that when you have your Roma and your 296,
Yeah.
you can tell which one's which. And you can have it matching, you can have this in carbon, you can have it matching your car.
Of course.
It's Ferrari. You can have any option you
I
want.
love it.
Yeah, I tend to just put that back in my pocket.
Yeah,
Right, so,
Don't lose that.
do you know what? Let's go electric, because we
Okay.
can, right?
We're going to start off electric.
Just cruise and rock and roll.
Yeah.
220 horsepower when you're driving like this. Obviously not like massive, massive power, and it's still pretty heavy. But this is where you press performance, engine back on, we're manual, second gear. You get some burbles. It's not the loudest car in the world.
No, it's pretty quiet in
It's
here.
really not all that loud, but it just drives so smoothly. I mean, this is a bad road. This is rough.
It is.
This is bumpy.
Yeah.
But for a car like this, it's very, very, very calm, very capable.
Very smooth.
And then, you know, if you do put your foot down, yeah, it just goes. It just absolutely goes.
And this is 1,000 horsepower to the crank, is that right?
1,000 horsepower, 1,000 PS, what's it, 989 brake horsepower. But then,
Oh, yeah.
it's a case of just clinging on. The funny thing is, when a car gets this powerful, right, and I often say this, you know that you can't use it on the road.
Yeah.
You know, this is a factory 1,000 horsepower. You can't like
No.
drive that real world on a regular basis like that. So you often don't try, and you forget what it can do. And then when you, on a day like today, you know, you're just playing around a little bit, drop it down. In fact, let's go into qualifying mode.
Qualifying mode, all right.
Maximum attack. That's when you get 1,000 horsepower. Second gear, and it's just.
From a factory car.
Yeah.
Bone stock.
Absolutely ludicrous. Like, absolutely ludicrous. And then this is the thing, right? The same car, you just press that button. Silent.
And it's back into silent mode.
That's full throttle electric.
Cruising to work. Oh my god.
And I literally do. So the funny thing is, I've had like 35 mpg out of this. You don't buy cars like this for fuel economy.
No.
But the
When
fact
you're
that
trying,
it can
yeah.
is kind of like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that you can get hundreds and hundreds of miles out of a very small tank just because you charge it up between fills.
So how far can you drive on a full tank,
I mean,
you think?
it comes down to how often you plug it in. Like I
Gotcha.
try to use electric when I can. I just find like it's a good way. It's quite pleasant driving like this.
Mhm.
So for my short hop between where I live and the barn, I can do that on full electric, right? So I can go all the way home and all the way back,
Yep.
and just plug it back in again, and off we go. Yeah. On the other hand, you can do 0 to 60 in like 2 seconds. I've had this at
Ridiculous.
about 210 miles an hour on the autobahn. Like, it's silly. It's absolutely silly.
Did you just want to keep
Back into
going
performance.
too?
Like, I just love this kind of dual character nature of the car.
Yeah.
How you can do. And yet it has a really nice interior. You know, I love
Yeah.
this inside. I love this curved display. It's a little bit laggy on the screen when you kind of flick it
Yep.
between the different displays. So, for example, if we swipe it sideways, you can see right now it's being a little bit laggy. Come on, move sideways. It doesn't even want to do it.
There we go.
Yeah, so that's to go into the full screen map, and it back. You've got a few different views and things. It'd be nice if it moved faster, but it doesn't seem to want to at all right now. But you kind of get my point.
Yeah.
It just takes a moment to think about itself. Yeah.
How long have you had this car for?
I have had this now for about 15 months, 14
Okay.
months, and we've got just over 8,000 miles on it.
Definitely drive it.
So it's having a good innings for such a car. Most cars like this don't get driven a whole lot.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to have it out on the roads as often as I can. Like I say, I drive it kind of to and from. I've also done a couple of road trips with it. I actually picked it up in Maranello at the factory in Italy. So I took delivery of it over in Italy,
That'd be
which was super cool.
I bet.
And I've also driven it down to Switzerland and back to Italy with the ski box on the top. So
Hell yeah.
it's had some fun. Yeah, it's had some fun.
What's your favorite thing about it?
Just the surprising usability for such a powerful car.
1,000 horsepower car that rides so smoothly.
Like, to drive like this, and you can actually go softer, you can go into bumpy road mode. I didn't actually turn the gearbox up into race, and then you can go CT off and everything gets even faster on the
Quick shifts,
Yeah. I just feel like a car like this shouldn't be as kind of elegant and dailyable and nice an experience.
Yeah.
You know, it's a really nice experience. Everything in here is really high quality. Everything's quite well made. It drives pretty well. I will confess that it's had a few electrical issues. SF90s do that. They like to throw some hiccups, but overall it's done me pretty well. You know, not many people drive these cars this much, and I know that from my dealer. So just kind of make the most of it and have a good time with it.
Yeah. That was gonna be my next question. Is what's your least favorite thing about this car?
How many times it's had to go to the dealer.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Unfortunately.
But they take care of you.
Yeah, they do. They're pretty good. Very good. Lucky to have a Ferrari dealer who we have a good relationship with to look after the car.
Good.
We're
So
back.
number 3 was quite the treat. Amazing. I love how smooth it was on the roads, especially with the bumps.
So we're going to go for something a little bit slower for number 2.
Number 2.
Slower but very different. We're going to go from the flair of Italian Exotica to a bit of British muscle, the Aston GT8.
Yeah.
I had a really special story with this car because I basically lived in the Aston factory in Gaydon throughout the process. So I stood in the paint booth when this car was painted. I was on the assembly line throughout the entirety of the build. And when it reached the end of the line, to start it and drive it off, I put the key in.
Really? You were the first start.
Yeah. So I've signed on the chassis, on the bare metal. I've signed on the back of the material on the bucket seats. Like, that's never coming off.
Amazing.
It's got my signatures on the back. So this is a really personal thing, linking back to the original.
Yeah.
And it sounds unreal.
All right, don't tell me too much. We'll hear about it when we get in the car here.
Oh, it sounds so good.
Completely different car than we were in last.
We've just gone from 8-speed dual clutch, hybrid, modern tech, turbocharged, everything, and now we're in an NA manual, like, as you said, polar opposite car,
Yes.
polar opposite experience. This thing's a bit of a workout, but that's what makes cars so rewarding. The more you have to work to get the shifts right, the more you have to be involved in the car. I always feel like the more at the end of the day you get back out of it. And it's obviously warm, we've got an open road. It's just silly. I think what I said earlier, right? This is like British muscle.
Yeah.
It's kind of accurate.
It feels like I'm an American car, but I'm
Yeah.
on the wrong side of the car.
Yeah.
That really throws everything off.
I'm shifting with my left hand,
Yep.
and you're doing it with your right. It's like,
I feel at home in a stick shift car at least. Yeah.
it's such a cool feeling driving it. I don't take this car out lots. It's got 11,000 miles, so it's not like I've never driven it.
Oh, wow.
You know, that's not. I always find it funny. I always feel guilty that like I don't drive every car all the time. But even a car like this, I try and drive at least 1,000 miles a year on everything. So obviously some will do tens of thousands.
Yeah.
But if I can get 1,000 miles in every car, that means it's still being enjoyed, it's still being driven. Something like this, you know, it will never be a silly high amount, but even those 11,000 miles, those are some fun memories.
For sure.
Just down through the gearbox.
It definitely doesn't sound like anything else I've been in. It definitely has a V8 sound, but it's a little bit raspier.
Yeah. It's
I
quite
liked all the suede. It's got suede everything.
Yeah.
Got carbon doors, carbon body, right?
Yeah, so full carbon body, which makes, well, nearly full carbon body, not like the doors and things.
Yeah.
But it makes no sense because it's not exactly a light car. It's just one of those final special edition limited, variants. Only 150 of these.
Yeah.
It's not like you see many of them. We actually have a really cool GT8 owners club, which, as you can imagine, is not a lot of people for so few cars anyway. but it's an amazing community because everybody had to be a little bit mad to buy one of these because it was really expensive. Like this 6 years ago was a little over £200,000. So
Is that MSRP?
yeah,
Okay.
so $250,000 or something for a 450 horsepower Aston. It's not that big a deal, but you know, it's about this. That sound. I can just keep doing it.
Yeah.
I like that we're in the middle of nowhere, so I'm not offending anybody because it's so loud. And people here perhaps are a little bit more sensitive to noisy cars
Yes, for
than
sure.
maybe over in America. But
Yeah.
you know, I took this on a tour around Italy, across to Sardinia to the island, which was mega. Loads and loads of fun. And it's a practical car as well. I like this kind of front engine GT, dynamic GT. There's quite a few cars in my collection like that because I like going on road trips, I like going on big drives, and you need to take stuff with you, right? You can't nerd trip like that.
What's your favorite part about this car?
Favorite part? It has to be the noise, right? It has to be that.
Yeah.
Like, it's silly. People have often said, why don't you stick an exhaust on it? I'm like, this car does not need an exhaust. I have considered putting a supercharger on it.
Oh, that'd be
Keep
cool.
a bit of OEM feel.
Get a little bit of the
Supercharged-
whine.
Yeah, there is a company here in the UK that makes them, and you can take it up to about 600 horsepower, which would be pretty cool. But
Yeah.
then against that, one of the things I quite like is that it's not over the top. You know, this is an amount of power where you can go up through the gears and you're not going some silly speed.
Sure.
You can have fun with it without finding yourself at a speed where you're going to jail.
Yeah.
Whereas I've got other cars in the garage that would allow me to get very quickly arrested if I want to, you know? It's a nice balance sometimes.
Like the one we were just in.
Yeah, exactly. You put your foot down for about 3 seconds at the SF90 and you're going some big number
Yeah.
very, very quickly. Whereas in here, you're probably just at the top end of second. It's lovely. Absolutely lovely.
What's one thing you don't like about it?
Quite expensive for what it is.
Okay.
Arguably becomes a bit of a moot point if you don't intend to sell it. If you wanted to own it from new, you know, I spec'd this car. Pretty much every car in the garage I spec'd from new, so the only way to be able to do that is to buy it from new. Hey, random R8 in a driveway, nice.
Oh yeah, first gen.
Cool. So yeah, I'm gonna say the price is the
Yep.
downside, if you will, with this. But even if you kind of chill out a little bit and just drive it gently, it's a really comfy place to be. It's a nice GT car.
All right, so this is your number 2. Let's go back to the
Yeah.
garage and find out what number 1 is. I think I know. I think everyone else knows too.
We'll find out in a second. One of the things I always love doing this is like the view in the rearview mirror when you're driving.
Oh,
first
that's-
in camera.
It does look sweet with all the.
I mean, this is not particularly high resolution,
No.
but it still looks pretty cool. We shall park this, ready for a run down the racetrack.
Yeah. So one thing I forgot to do, and I didn't ask while you were driving because you can't show me the fob.
The fob.
Let's check out
This is the valet key, so it's like the cheap plastic, not the glass fancy one, but it's still cool that it's
Alright.
in the dash like that. But yeah, that's just
So sweet.
that's a Volvo key from a few
Can I
generations ago.
put it in the dash? Real quick?
Yeah.
Is it this way? That way?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then hold it in.
Oh, you hold it.
Start it. Yeah, you need to pop it back out again.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Oh.
Spring loaded.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't think there's any other cars in the world that you start by putting a key in the dash.
Well, it's the emotional control unit, right? It's emotion. You do something, you start it.
I love it.
Yeah,
That's sweet.
It's cool.
All right.
And just the
On to
things like
number 1.
the screen folding, right?
Oh,
The
yeah.
screen tucks away. And... Yeah, number 1. Difficult to choose favourite cars. I was verging towards the SLS Black Series. That is a very, very special car for me. Dream car for many years prior to doing all of this, before being lucky to own these cars. So it was a must to add to the collection. But there's one little clue here.
Oh, the door is
There's
even
a door
open.
open.
Yep.
We're going to the Ford GT.
Yes.
The Ford GT is, I mean, it's the American supercar, right? But it's also the whole story behind it. I love a story. And this car was made to celebrate 50 years of Le Mans, to go back to Le Mans. They were victorious again. The road car was almost, we have to make it. We're going to lose loads of money on them. We're going to do things our own way. And it's not like anything else. It's not like you get in a Ferrari and you kind of roughly know how it works. Everything in here is really clever, really trick. There's so much incredible engineering to it as well. Like, if you, I mean, everyone, I guess, knows these buttresses, which are completely
It looks so
open.
cool from the back.
Yeah,
You see
but it's like,
through.
they serve multiple purposes. Not only are they for the aerodynamics of the teardrop cabin, but the airflow here, which is obviously as far out as possible, is actually routed up through the buttress and into the engine bay
did not know
for
that.
cooling. Like, the number of incredible details of this. And while it's a very pretty body, you know, while the body of this thing is cloaked to look as nice as possible, it's also a race car, and I've popped the front for a reason, because in any other supercar, and you might say this is a bad thing, but I love it, in any other supercar, that would be hidden under a carbon fiber piece.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Whereas in here, you can see straight through to the floor, through the sides, you can see what's going on,
Yep.
because it's supposed to be light, it's supposed to go and race. It's a
Yeah.
race car, it's built by a race team.
No extra bits.
Yeah, just what it has to have. And the whole family behind the GT, and I've been lucky to meet the designer of the car, the family, literally from Ford, you know, all of the team, so many of the team, I should say, from this. This car's irreplaceable to me. It's like absolutely irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Should I stop blabbing and we should go drive?
Let's go do it.
It's also got a new Quicksilver exhaust.
I'll go on the
Sounds
other
good.
side now.
Yeah,
There
it's
you
a
go.
left-hand drive, this one. They only made them left.
Whoa. Cool.
It's going to be cozy in
Oh,
here.
yeah.
I'll warn you of that right now. There's not a lot of space.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Literally. Are you ready?
I am.
Cold start with new exhaust. Sounds good.
Yes.
There was so much of this V6 versus V8 talk when
Yeah.
this thing arrived.
You got the key?
Yeah, so the key for the car, sorry, it's squeezed into my pocket, is your normal Mustang key.
Oh, it just says GT on it.
Yeah, no big deal. It would have been nice to have a GT specific one, but I'm okay with it, you know. Some of the things like the window switches and the lock button, they're the same as my Heritage RS and the GT500, you know? Same
Yep.
as any Focus or Mustang. And that's part of the brand continuity.
Makes sense.
So yeah. You know the party trick with this?
What's
you know
that?
the track mode?
Oh. It drops.
2 inches and then up
Really?
again. It's so
Very
cool.
fast, too.
Yeah, and then you have a completely different suspension setup. It's basically got 2 systems. So when you're driving in normal or sport, like this, the higher mode, you're in a hydraulic, very McLaren-esque steering feel. When you drop it down, it kind of uses the actuators and hydraulics to lock itself onto a rose joint system, and the feel is completely different. It's like 2 different cars.
Wow.
I often say this is like a $250,000 suspension system in this thing. Like, it's so clever.
Yeah. So
But
hopping in here, it's a lot like the 2 cars we rode in combined. It's cramped like the Ferrari, well, a little cramped like the Ferrari, but you got the suede dash.
Yeah, this is kind of, in many ways, the last of an era. Obviously now everything's going electrified, hybrid, full electric, etc. And supercars get beaten by like Tesla plaids, right? You know, quickest things out there. So when you're not necessarily chasing performance, and this was never the fastest car, like the cars it was benchmarked against were already kind of previous gen supercars. And I think ultimately that it still has a very raw feel, proper steering, proper brakes, and that sound, which is just super cool.
Oh, yeah.
I love the noise that it makes. Yet it's not like the SF90, you know, it's a very, very different experience to the SF90.
Yeah.
And you feel here, obviously it's quite firm like this. We have a comfort mode for the suspension, which instantly,
Oh, yeah,
massive
you can
difference.
feel that.
Like the difference is huge. And it's quite nice to just ride and chill in. It's quite noisy now with the exhaust, but we like that. That's a good thing. We go back into sport and just drop it down some gears again. Down to 2nd gear.
Oh, yes.
Really cool. I've had this at 200 miles an hour, a couple of Nürburgring laps. It's such a mega thing. Honestly.
What's it feel like at 200?
So, interestingly, it has a velocity mode where it uses the lower suspension but keeps the wing down. And if you use velocity mode, any kind of gentle curve at high speed is terrifying because the back has no stability.
Oh, no drag back. Yeah.
Like no control. If however you have the wing up, you'll hit your VMAX sooner.
Okay.
But the ride is obviously you're a little bit more confident doing it, should we say?
Yeah.
I always felt like because this is produced, it was built by Multimatic in Canada. A lot of people don't know that it was built by Multimatic for Ford, and they're a race team outfit. Yeah, they've got a fantastic setup, but you always expect for such a small organisation without full experience of building cars like this, that it would be a bit ropey, that it wouldn't be as well made as it is, as well designed and engineered and put together. Whereas it's actually a really, really nice car to drive. You know, obviously if you drop some gears and start playing around with it, it's pretty on it. Like I had a day at Silverstone where I said to myself I'd go out and do a few laps, and I ended up doing about 50 laps that day because I was just hooked on it. The balance is amazing. We're actually sat a very long way back from the front. Like the amount of car in front of us is enough that there could even be an engine there. And the engine is obviously quite light and quite far forward, so the weight is right in the middle. And it communicates that to you really, really well. You feel very, very, very in control of everything. So as mid-engine cars go, sliding this is actually really nice.
Oh,
like
man.
it's really well balanced. It just
I would have a hard time getting out of this too.
just
want to keep driving it.
it feels like a car that you just think back to the story. You know, you think back to everything that it means and what it was all about. And you're not just driving something that the company wanted to sell to please some shareholders and
It's a piece of history.
Yeah, literally.
I have to show this. The view from the passenger seat here is crazy, looking back through the fender. So I gotta ask, what's your favorite part about this car?
It's the story. I'm going completely with story. And that to me is everything. The story of the car itself, and even the story that I have with the car. You know, I went to see this car being built in Canada. They actually gave me about a week's notice. They were like, your car is going to be on the line in about 6 days' time. Do you want to come and see it? And I was like, oh my gosh.
That's not much time.
No, I obviously had other things planned. It was like, I'm dropping everything. Because I was like, I know I'm going to keep this car for life. Like, if I was going to be buried in a car, it's this. Because I feel a bit as, you know, I'm super lucky that everything I've done business-wise has turned out to put me in a position that I can buy the cars I've been lucky to buy. But there are quite a few avenues to that. You know, that's one thing, but it's still just buying a car at the end of the day. Whereas with this, to have been lucky enough to get the allocation for the car feels even more like that's
How
something.
many did they give out? Or not give out? How many allocations?
Initially, there were 13,500 applications for 500 cars, I think it was, something like that. The number was crazy. The number was absolutely crazy. So for me to have been lucky to secure one of those, to have done something that Ford said, yeah, we're happy to sell you a car, when they had people with 20 Ferraris they were turning down, when they had people who have owned all sorts of crazy things, I was like,
that says a lot.
This is like a, if I could say, an achievement. This is like, from everything I've done through Shmee150, this is kind of one of the coolest parts of it. This is one of the trophies of the whole channel. Like, you know, it's like the million
so many
subscriber
moments
plaque.
leading up to that. Yeah.
You know, like as a YouTuber, when you get your million subscriber plaque, if you're lucky to get there, that's like a big deal. Right? You know what that feeling is like when you open it. This is like my second one of those. You know, it's like I got a million subscribers and I managed to buy a Ford GT. Like, that's the like
living a dream.
Literally, that's what it feels like. Like something really, really special.
So what's the one thing you don't like about the car? There has to be one.
I mean, there are things like it's utterly useless. It's not very practical at all. You can't take any luggage with you, anything like that. But probably is the fear that something could go wrong that puts me off using it for as much as I would want to. Because, you know, if I damage this thing, like the cost to repair things are astronomical. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, it's very it's very scary, we could say.
So the fear of breaking something
almost, yeah. You know, people do weird and erratic things when you're on the road in a car like this, like in terms of the way they drive around you and that kind of stuff.
Like you were saying earlier, it was raining. You're like, I'm not sure about the Ford GT if it's raining.
I mean, I've driven it in everything. I've driven this car in snow, but it's one of those, like, I think about every risk much more highly than with other cars, and part of that is because of what it means to me, you know? Like, it's what's the reward for going out and driving it one short journey somewhere?
Yeah.
Whereas the risk is something gets really damaged, right?
Sure.
And I'm lucky to have other cars where I don't care so much. I mean, I obviously care about every car, but you know, at the end of the day, if one of my AMGs got damaged, there are Mercedes dealers everywhere. I can get it fixed easily. If this gets damaged, I just don't. I don't even want to think about it. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
it's so. Yeah.
What are the dials here?
The very basic climate controls.
Oh, this is temperature.
Yeah,
That's what they put it in Celsius for you?
Yeah. So the car is built as an American car. So even like mine is an American car to start.
Yep.
And then they convert it to UK spec.
Gotcha.
So they convert it on arrival to have the headlights our way around and that kind of thing. But the funny thing is, this is an extraordinarily expensive car here. They were expensive in the US, but by the time you had paid the US price, plus shipped it, plus converted it, plus you then have to pay all the import duties and taxes on top, that ended up making this, like, at the start, when it was 500k in the US, it was about 700k here.
Jeez.
Like, serious money, but...
I mean, you said 32% to import a car.
It's so special that
Oh my
almost
gosh.
becomes irrelevant. Like, it doesn't really matter against it. Like, well, you can't experience this any other way, you know, it's...
No.
Yeah, and it just looks so cool on the road as well.
Yeah.
I've done a few drives with various of my cars, with some of my employees and friends driving them, and whenever I see this on the move, I just look at it like, you know, it's like the heart size emoji. You know, like,
Nothing looks like this car. You know what it is right away.
Yeah.
Especially those rear fenders.
It's funny here though, because in the UK, it's not so well known, and the comment I always get is, "What is that?"
Yeah.
You say it's a Ford, and they go, there's no way that's a Ford. And then you see them peering at the badge on the bonnet. And
Yeah,
you're like,
like,
oh wait, that actually is a Ford.
Had they made more than 500, or is it only 500?
No, they did a second batch as well.
Okay.
So the total number is 1,350, which is not a lot for a car like this. You know, the UK number is like 30, 40. For some perspective, GT Black Series is about 40, 50. So
Yeah.
it's not a lot of cars considering the demand for a Ford.
What an amazing car. Thank you so much for the experience.
Absolute pleasure.
Well, that's
Bit
it
of a
for the
beast.
collection. I appreciate the ride in this. I can't thank you enough.
It's been a pleasure.
To have my first experience in a Ford GT along with you was pretty amazing.
I find it quite funny that you had to fly all the way to the UK to experience the American supercar.
Yeah, no kidding. So,
yeah.
a couple last questions. Well, actually,
Sure.
just one. What's missing? What's next? What do you want in your collection?
Well, I need the Zenvo back.
Yep.
That'll be here really soon. I've got a few toys on order. Nothing that's like massively standout special, I would say. It's kind of, I had this period over the last couple of years where I bought the Ford GT and the Senna. I actually got them a day apart. Like, I picked up this car, put it at home in my garage at like 9 p.m. at night. At 9 a.m. the next morning, I collected the Senna. That was
Oh,
like the wildest
dang.
24 hours of my life. I just did not know what was
I remember
going
you
on.
got them close together. I was like, dang,
it was
when is he gonna
literally
stop buying
overnight.
cars?
It was literally overnight. So I had, obviously, GT Senna and the Zenvo. And I want to focus more now. I feel like I need a break from these big hitters because there's a lot of stress that comes with these things. Cost to own them, insure them, where you put them, what you do with them. So something like the Clio V6 has been an amazing project for me. A lot of fun. I'd like to do more things like that. Cool cars from my childhood, like sub $100,000 cars, projects, build them how I want them, you know, enjoy them while we still
Yep.
can. Who knows what the future is.
I know.
Yeah, so that's more what's next. You know, the garage has been a big thing for the last year. Building the Shmuseum, building my racetrack
Yeah.
to show all of the cars. Now I want to kind of sit here, use my office space, think, plan some more businesses, hopefully turn this into who knows what next.
Yeah. An amazing collection.
Yeah.
And so many cool cars with so much meaning behind them.
I think that's key to me. You know, the cars have stories. All of them have stories. All of them have memories, experiences, and to carry those forward and, you know, to preserve these things. I feel unbelievably lucky each and every single day to actually own these cars, and if I can preserve them for the next generations as well, I'm certainly going to try my best.
Amazing. Well, thank you again for showing us around, and quite an experience in these cars.
Thank you for coming out with me.
Thank you. What an amazing time we've had here, checking out Shmee's collection, riding in some cars I never thought I'd have a chance to ride in. Matt and I had a great time. Throw a comment down below where we should go next. We'd like to focus on modified street cars. We made an exception for Shmee for obvious reasons, but there's so many collections out there we gotta check out. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you guys next time.